Episode 27 of the Consistency Podcast is here. My name's Steve from Gloucester, and there's a few items to get to this episode. To start, let's talk about another average at best unnamed podcast. It just wasn't that great again. I give it a B-, or as Harry Minahan would say, a boring minus. Kirk was great as usual. He was funny and did a great job of running the show, but Dave Portnoy ruined another episode by making it about him. I mean, what else is new? And the worst thing is that Ryan Whitney placated Dave when it came to Portnoy talking about his money, his buddy Elio, or Miss Peaches. There was a show in the 1980s called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous hosted by Robin Leach. I'm not sure if you guys remember it. And Robin's catchphrase was champagne wishes and caviar dreams. And that's the perfect way to describe Dave. Everything seems to be about money and how the rich people live. Yes, of course, I get it. Dave owns Barstool, and he has more money than 99.9% of us can only dream of, and he can talk about whatever he wants as he is a boss. But it seems like Dave has totally forgotten that he grew up in Swampscott, Mass., played sports like thousands of kids did growing up, and he spent many a day hanging out at Monty's Pizza in Lynn, Mass. Shout out to Monty's. Excellent pizza. As Neil Diamond sang in Forever Blue Jeans, money talks, but it don't sing and dance and it can't walk. And I wish Dave would take that verse to heart, as he just changed from the hardworking guy trying to make a name for himself in the Barstool Milton office to someone who is tone deaf to his fans, many of whom are living paycheck to paycheck. Dave, of course, will always get respect for hiring a lot of people and supporting small business, but somewhere along the line, Dave seems to have forgotten where he came from. I mean, Kirk and Ryan both have money. They're rich, but they don't flaunt or act like it. They're regular, everyday guys. And until Dave acts more like Kirk and Ryan, then this show will be another one in the Barstool lineup instead of a must-listen. Speaking of Barstool shows and content, here is an idea for the Barstool people that they should consider. How about doing your actual shows and stopping these silly competitions? I mean, why not consider this? Sure, watching Jerry hit a hole-in-one and the free throw competition was great, but now we've moved on to amateur hour with finding needles in haystacks, trying to make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich, performing an NFL-style combine, and whatever you want to call what Chris Klemmer is trying to attempt this Monday. Now, I like Chris. He's very entertaining, especially when he's in studio with Kirk. But his 100 hours of solitary confinement doesn't seem like Club Med. I mean, we can all do more than 100 hours under the conditions Chris has been given. I mean, this seems more like the jail scene in Goodfellas, where Paulie and Henry were eating steak and lobster and doing their times like kings rather than being confined to a small room. I mean, why isn't Klemmer given the standard 3 hots in a cot and some reading materials like actual people get who are in solitary confinement in jail? And it's no offense to Chris whatsoever, but this is just another example of how Barstool is slowly turning into a variety hour company filled with degenerate gamblers who would rather do push-ups and sprints rather than give us funny and entertaining shows to help us get through each day. And of course, I get why they might be doing this. It's a slow time of the year. It's post-football, pre-NCAA tournament, but there just seems to be an oversaturation of these competitions that is making Barstool a turnoff at this point. And, you know, Kirk seems to be the lone holdout to this nonsense. KMS has been outstanding, but it's time for the boys and girls in the Chicago and New York offices to put their focus on speaking into a microphone and giving us their takes and reactions to what is going on in the sports and entertainment world, rather than determining who can hit the most three-pointers, lift the most weights, or can make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich. I mean, enough already, guys. Go back to being our Barstool, please. And speaking of KMS, you have to feel for Mutt and Mick. I mean, they're both at a crossroads when it comes to their careers for different reasons. Last Monday to me seems like the first time where we heard Mutt sound a little deflated about getting a job in the radio or podcast industry. I mean, I really felt bad for him, Like Steve Perry sang in Don't Stop Believing, Mutt would probably pay anything to roll the dice one more time in this type of industry. And you hope it happens for him. I mean, he's a good guy and he's trying to get another job the right way. He's doing it privately, he's doing it professionally, and you hope he gets another break. I mean, he deserves it. And, maybe something does open up for him at Barstool. I mean, especially if Portnoy moves forward with his idea of having a horse racing podcast with Elio. I mean, wouldn't Mutt be the perfect fit? But the only advice I think I would give Mutt is he definitely should consider doing something with Dave Cullinane in the short term. I know Dave gets his balls broken a lot, but he's actually pretty good with ideas when it comes to social media and podcasting. So maybe Mutt can collaborate with Dave a little bit and, keep his name in the forefront and, people can consider him, for a job down the line. I mean, it can't hurt him at all. So, maybe he and Dave should work together. It could be a good thing. And, with Mick, from a personal level, I hope everything's going well with him and his girlfriend. I reached out to him for support. I know what they're going through. I spent a lot of years on that same path. And, what I found out was getting help was the best way for me to quiet the thoughts in my head, the feelings, and the triggers that often spiraled out of control. And, that was my suggestion to Mick and, to anyone. If you need help, reach out for support. Find somebody to talk to. Reach out to me because, mental health is so important these days. And, from a professional level, what we saw again this week from Mick is something that plagues a lot of us in that he reacts before he listens. And I know his rants from a content standpoint, they're gold. Everybody loves the Mick rants. But what he's failing to realize is that Kirk is actually giving him professional advice in the studio, and it may be more beneficial for him to listen and process what Kirk is saying before he hits the record button on another Beyond Average episode. It might be a good thing for him. But I understand it. We're all guilty of this. I mean, I wrote a letter to the studio. I've had some wild episodes in the past as proof. But over the last few months, I pretty much stopped doing a lot of those instant reaction shows where I was so mad. I haven't been fixated on KMS at all. I don't turn on the show live at 9:30 every morning like I used to. I don't feel obligated to reply to every post like some of the hardcore Twitter people like BioDude does. I just kind of took a step back. I took Kirk's advice on taking a break and doing a few things to make the Consistency podcast more listenable, and I found that it really helped. Taking a breather is a good thing, and that is what Mick should do. I mean, he doesn't have to comment on everything that Kirk says. He doesn't have to perceive everything to be a slight or an insult. And, he doesn't have to automatically think that a compliment from a Barstool employee is going to mean a contract. I mean, at the end of the day, Mick has to ask himself, what is the benefit of these rants? I mean, what's he going to get? An extra 10 followers on Twitter and maybe 4 extra listeners to Beyond Average? I mean, what he's really doing is making himself a turnoff to the Barstool people. I mean, is someone like Big Cat really going to hire Mick after hearing these rants? I mean, he's not going to take him serious. And, Mick also should really listen back to his confrontations with Blind Mike and Cullinane. I mean, these are 2 very mild-mannered guys who pretty much felt offended with what Mick was saying. I mean, they have Barstool experience. They've been there before. They've gone through a lot of grief at Barstool. And, they're trying to help Mick out, and yet Mick felt offended. I mean, he takes things so literal, and he's got to really slow down those thoughts. And he has to understand that if he just learns to relax and let things come to him, then there still may be some hope for that nut. I mean, he's really just got to slow it down, and I think it would work out for him. And finally, and to close, despite guys like Montante talking about me in the past tense, I'm very much alive. I'm scheduled to be in studio on Wednesday. I think I'm in there with Mutt. I'm very grateful for another chance to help contribute to the best podcast in America. I'm looking forward to it. It's been like 6 weeks, and it's going to be, really fun, I think. And, I know there's been talk about there being a new KMS network. My name was mentioned last week as a possible CEO of the potential new venture. There's a saying taped to my car's dashboard that says, you will learn something new every day. And what I learned from the past couple of months is that this is a topic that I really shouldn't be discussing on this podcast, as I'm going to be giving the social media seagulls the proverbial bread in terms of something to bash me about. And, these people can definitely piss in the wind as far as I'm concerned, but I'd rather not give them the satisfaction by commenting on this for now. Plus, you never know if this is actually going to happen. But if it is, I think it's best to speak on it if the topic is brought up on Wednesday. I mean, I'll definitely be open to that, but, not here. It's just not a good time to comment on it. But anyway, I'll have a recap of that show and thoughts on whatever else comes up in the KMS world next week. And with that said, stay well, be good to the ones you love, and I'll talk to you soon.